Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start our video with a story in which the main character was so stupid that she decided to attack a bouncer in a club, even calling the police after it. I think you guessed what happened at the end. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Drunk woman calls the cops on me after assaulting me. This happened a few years ago. I was a manager/bouncer at a very busy local bar, and it was my job to cut people off and/or bounce them if needed. I was in the process of cutting a woman off, and she became very belligerent. Since this was also a karaoke bar, she just so happened to be called to the stage while I was in the middle of cutting her off. She marches past me and stumbles onto the stage. I have the karaoke host cut her music off and continue on to the next singer. I go to the stage and escort the lady off. To be clear, I did not touch her at this moment. I'm a broad 5'9" woman, and my boots add another 1.5 inches, so this very short woman complied rather easily until she continued to argue with me after the fact. She didn't want to leave and ended up punching me in the face. I put my arms around her, picked her up, and headed towards the front door, at which time she grabbed the protective glass cover on the host stand and shattered it all over the ground. Once she was outside, she was yelling and screaming that I had assaulted her and threatened to call the police to have me arrested. I quickly grabbed a business card for her and said, "Our address is on the card, just so you make sure you call the cops to the right place." They arrived and asked me who they needed to arrest. They arrested her. I'm certain they just put her in the drunk tank for the night. And our second story. Crazy lady gets tire marks on driveway. This may be one of the most petty things I've ever done. Recently, I was going to a friend's birthday. Their community had the most convoluted main road where you could go into part of the community and think you're on the main road. My buddy's house is maybe half a mile in, and I go straight while the main road continues right. After 5 to 10 minutes wandering around this neighborhood with my car, I realized this neighborhood is the wrong one. The problem is that my huge car can't make a U-turn in the road without crushing 2 lawns and a mailbox. Therefore, I back into a driveway to make a 3-point turn. As I back in, a lady storms out of the house. I'll call her CL for crazy lady, and me is, well, me. CL, what do you think you're doing in my driveway? I just need to make a U-turn, ma'am. Why in my driveway? This road's too small for my car to make a U-turn in. I'm calling the police. This is trespassing. CL proceeds to call the police while blocking my car with herself and her trash can. I'm pretty pissed by now, 15 minutes late to the party. The police arrive and tell the woman, no, it's not illegal to make a 3-point turn. She's fuming at this point, so she starts yelling in my ear about how you're not going to get away with this. The police shut her up, then pulled her aside. Apparently, CL had called like this twice before, once for a guy who'd walked by with a stroller and his daughter inside. They told her if it happened again, she'd be arrested for 911 abuse. She started ranting to them about how this was power abuse and that she'd be talking with the sheriff and all that. The officers told me I was free to go. They drove off, and when they were out of sight, the woman refused to move her trash can, still sitting in front of my car. She ranted more to me and started kicking my door. I opened the door, hitting her in the side, walked over to her trash can, and placed it in the middle of the road. Then I went back to my car, pulled up the e-brake, and started to do a burnout in her driveway. I then left her with black tire marks on her driveway and a trash can in the middle of the street. Later, she tried to accuse me of vandalism, which was taken down. I did get a ticket for reckless driving for the burnout, but disputed it in traffic court where I won. F you, random lady. And our last story. Our neighbor did everything in her power to control our backyard to improve her view. Several years ago, my family moved us all to a small town. The reason was that the city we lived in had a population boom with people from California moving in, bringing in heavy traffic and raising property value. Since my sister was approaching driving age and were already attending a school in the other town, they decided it was best we moved to a smaller place to get away from the rapidly growing environment. We moved into a decent neighborhood that had a lot of nice families and old people living there, and our next-door neighbors were very kind, usually. One of our next-door neighbors, an older husband and wife who shared part of the same gate we did, was always kind to us, but slowly grew to be a nuisance over the years. I never knew this until nearly 1 year ago that the neighbors weren't too happy about us moving to the house when their previous neighbors put it up for sale. I remember my dad saying that they had eyes on their property when it was put up for sale since it had an incredible view of the town. We lived on a tall hill and we could see half the town and land further beyond. It was breathtaking. They raised money for it, but before they could reach the amount they needed, we bought the house and moved in. And ever since then, the wife wanted control over our backyard. The husband hardly did anything. So from this point on, I'll only be referring to the wife as the troublesome neighbor. There's quite a few stories, so strap in. See, these neighbors live in a house which has a patio facing the same view our backyard has. They can see a lot of what we can, but our backyard has some minor blockages or problems that bug them. The previous owner's wife was really into gardening, and her backyard was filled with beautiful plants and trees, which added to our interest in the house. She created little garden boxes behind our house which faced the neighbor's yard. They were old and tattered, but brought me and my dad a lot of joy since we loved planting vegetables. The neighbor asked me a few times if she could borrow one of the planter boxes. I don't remember what happened, but my dad found out she didn't show much interest in actually using them, but more like she wanted to get rid of the eyesore. Dad refused, but she asked multiple times before she finally gave up. Our backyard also had several fruit trees planted in the center of the yard. They were small, but one in particular blocked a bit of the neighbor's view. The wife started pestering my parents to just cut the tree down, almost in a joking tone, but my parents knew after a while she wasn't kidding. The tree died from natural causes several years later, and she got her wish. But her demands got more and more annoying to my parents. I don't remember the particular things the wife complained about, but my parents constantly said she hated how we blocked her view. Even things that didn't block her view irritated her, and she complained. We also found out she was part of the neighborhood management committee and tried to complain on multiple occasions that we were breaking laws. I don't remember if she ever got away with some because we didn't do much to change. Eventually, it got so bad that my mom would say she would see her on her porch glaring at her whenever she went outside. Our porch is a little visible from her patio through a small gap between our house and a smaller house we use as our game room, or as we call it, our casita. Not to mention that many dachshunds she owned, at least 4 or 5, would start barking if they saw even an inch of movement outside. Once one started barking, they all did. It got so bad my mom and dad couldn't stand to go outside without worrying about her staring at them or drawing attention from the dogs. So my parents decided they were all going to buy a gate to block off the neighbor's view of our patio, which she did not like at all. She complained to the committee, trying to do anything she could to get the gate unapproved. I guess her complaints did nothing since the gate was built a month after as my parents planned. When construction started, she came out of her house and freaked out. She argued with my parents, who said they got legal permission to put the gate up, and she couldn't get them to take it down no matter what she said or tried. She argued with them about her view, saying it was something that they should share with her. But my parents said she didn't have the right to control what they did on their property and to leave them alone. She complained to the board, stating our family broke a number of laws, such as putting the gate up and other things. She also tried to get other neighbors to agree with her. They all said she didn't really have a right to complain, considering she causes problems herself with her house full of shrill barking dachshunds that you could hear from outside the house. She tried to train them, but it wouldn't stop their barking. That gate's still up in our yard, and no one has told us to take it down other than her. Cut to a year ago, when this next part of the story happened. Less than a year ago, my parents were coming home from lunch and saw a bunch of people crowded around the end of their backyard. They were freaked out because they didn't know how the heck anyone got into the yard. Apparently, a deer tried to jump over our fence and impaled itself in the side of one of the posts. This tends to happen since deer aren't usually smart. The neighbor called people over to remove the deer without letting my parents know, then let them all into our backyard without permission. My dad was furious, running over to the neighbor and asking what the heck she was doing in the yard. She first explained the deer situation, and my dad exclaimed she should have let them know first. She argued that it had to be helped immediately and said something about how she did ask permission or how she had permission since she was part of the committee. Dad insisted that all she had to do was call him and ask before barging in and bringing a bunch of people into his property without permission, and he would have let her. Our dog, a lemon beagle, was left outside while we were gone and could have bolted out the gate if she'd left it open or wasn't careful, which was why my dad was ticked off. She grumbled, and eventually everyone left after dealing with the deer. So far, nothing has really happened since, but just knowing this neighbor was judging us made me nervous. I always had that feeling that she did, but never knew for sure until I heard the story. The gate has helped block her glares and even kept the dogs down more. Want to know the irony about this story? Between the time we moved there and the gate being built, a large 2-story house was built right in front of the view. Most of the neighborhood was ticked, as well as my parents, but the neighbor never got over it, even though my parents have been content with the view left over, and the nice neighbor who moved there, she was still ticked off that they built a house there, and she couldn't do anything about it. Good fences make good neighbors. Robert Frost. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.